September 3rd, 2017. Seismographs worldwide detect something impossible. But this wasn't an earthquake. It was North Korea detonating a nuclear bomb 10 times more powerful than Hiroshima. Despite every sanction, every blockade, every attempt to stop them, they've now built 60 nuclear weapons ready to launch, pointed at cities where you live right now. How North Korea was able to pull it all off was because of these worthless rocks that look like driveway gravel. It all starts with raw uranium ore, which looks so ordinary that most people would walk right past it, thinking it's worthless rubble. North Korea mines this boring-looking rock at Pyeongsan and Pakcheon. And what happens next is where things get wild. Workers crush these worthless chunks into powder and dump everything into massive industrial vats filled with sulfuric acid. You know, that stuff that eats through metal in movies? Yeah, that. After some chemical magic, out comes this bright yellow powder called yellow cake that honestly looks like Betty Crocker cake mix. And no, you definitely don't want to bake with it. Here's the problem North Korea faced though. Yellow cake is 80% uranium, but it's the wrong kind. See, uranium comes in different flavors. You've got uranium-238, the boring older brother who makes up 99.3% of all uranium. Then you've got uranium-235, the wild, younger brother who only shows up 0.7% of the time. Now here's where it gets interesting. U-238 just sits there like a paperweight. Nothing happens. Ever. But U-235? That's different. Hit that same atom with a neutron and it explodes like atomic popcorn, splitting apart and firing out more neutrons that hit more U-235 atoms. One atom splits, which splits 2 more, which split 4 more. And before you can blink, you've got enough energy to erase a city from existence. But remember, out of every 1,000 uranium atoms in yellow cake, only 7 are the explosive U-235 type. For a bomb, you need uranium that's over 90% U-235. That's like trying to make orange juice from a fruit basket that's 99% apples. So North Korea had 2 choices. Transform the boring U-238 into something else entirely, or figure out how to separate the 2 isotopes. And because they're overachievers in the worst possible way, they decided to do both. Making plutonium is basically witchcraft with atoms. North Korea literally transforms one element into a completely different element. If medieval alchemists knew about this, they'd lose their minds. The star of this show is Yongbyon's 5-megawatt reactor. Now, that sounds tiny, right? Your local power plant probably generates hundreds of times more. But here's the thing. This reactor isn't trying to power homes. It has one job: creating plutonium for bombs. Even though nuclear sanctions since 1992 banned reactor parts, they build it anyway using 1980s blueprints. Workers take regular uranium fuel rods, the same boring 99.3% U-238 stuff, and stick them inside the reactor. Inside that reactor core, atoms split apart in a controlled chain reaction that generates heat that would melt your car into a puddle. But more importantly, it sprays out billions of neutrons flying around like microscopic bullets. Sometimes, one of those neutrons smacks into a U-238 atom. When it swallows that neutron, it gets indigestion. It transforms into U-239, which is about as stable as a house of cards in a hurricane. Within minutes, it decays into Neptunium-239. Then it decays again into Plutonium-239. Congratulations, you just witnessed atomic alchemy. But wait, and this is crucial. Timing is everything. It's like baking cookies, except these cookies could kill everyone within 100 miles. Pull those fuel rods out too early, not enough plutonium. You've wasted months of work. Leave them in for too long, something worse happens. The entire reactor becomes a nuclear trap that could destroy not only years of work, but also vaporize the technicians unlucky enough to be nearby. The plutonium-239 starts absorbing more neutrons and turns into plutonium-240. P-240 is the unreliable cousin of the plutonium family. Unpredictable, unstable. It's like setting a bomb with a timer that can go off at any moment without warning. It can cause your bomb to detonate prematurely. Weapons designers call this a fizzle. Imagine building a nuclear weapon for years, only to have it go off with the power of a large firecracker. Embarrassing doesn't even begin to cover it. Once the workers pull the rods out, these things glow, literally glow. They're generating so much heat they could melt themselves into radioactive lava if you don't cool them properly. So they go for a very long swim. Months underwater in special cooling pools. After a year of running this reactor, North Korea gets about 6 kilograms of weapons-grade plutonium. That's roughly the weight of a bowling ball that could turn Manhattan into dust. But getting that plutonium out, that's when things get really insane. Once those fuel rods cool down from instant vaporization to merely extremely hazardous, they travel to the radiochemical laboratory. This is where North Korea extracts plutonium from spent fuel rods so radioactive that standing near them for 30 seconds would be your last mistake. They built this facility despite the 2006 UN sanctions blocking chemical equipment imports. Everything had to be made domestically or smuggled. Robotic systems chop the fuel rods into pieces like the world's most dangerous salami slicer. Then they dissolve everything in boiling nitric acid. Yes, boiling acid. That's what they're using for real. What you end up with is the most toxic soup in existence. A radioactive smoothie containing uranium, plutonium, and dozens of other elements so dangerous they don't even have common names. Getting plutonium out of this nightmare requires a process called purex. They add tributyl phosphate mixed with kerosene. The uranium and plutonium atoms look at this kerosene mixture and jump right in. Meanwhile, all the other radioactive garbage stays in the acid. Think of it like using a magnet to pull iron filings out of sand, except the magnet is chemistry, and the sand wants to destroy you at the atomic level. They repeat this separation dozens of times. Dozens. Each time getting slightly purer plutonium. The final product? Metallic plutonium that's warm to the touch because atoms are literally falling apart inside it. This is the same plutonium now sitting in North Korean warheads. But here's what should terrify you. North Korea didn't just master the chemistry, they automated it. They built robots that handle materials so deadly that a single drop could contaminate an entire city block. And they're getting better at it every single year. But plutonium was just one path. Remember those identical twins I mentioned? North Korea still needed to separate the U-235 from U-238, and the solution they found involved spinning things really, really fast. First, workers convert yellow cake into uranium hexafluoride, which scientists call UF6. The stuff turns into a gas at just 56 degrees Celsius. That's cooler than your morning coffee. This matters because you can't separate solids based on weight easily, but gases, that's possible. Barely possible, but possible. The gas flows to Building 600 at Yongbyon, which houses thousands of centrifuges. Thousands. All spinning like angry metallic tornadoes. Each centrifuge contains a rotor spinning at 90,000 RPM. Let me put that in perspective. Your car engine redlines at maybe 6,000 RPM. These things spin 15 times faster. If something goes wrong at that speed, it doesn't just break, it explodes like a grenade. As the rotor spins, something subtle but crucial happens. The heavier U-238 molecules fly to the outer wall like kids on a merry-go-round. The lighter U-235 molecules hang out closer to the center. The difference is microscopic. These atoms are only 1.3% different in weight. It's like trying to separate Skittles from M&Ms while blindfolded. Except the Skittles and M&Ms are identical, and one weighs just a single grain of salt more. Here's the kicker that makes everyone want to pull their hair out. Each centrifuge only increases the U-235 concentration by a tiny fraction. We're talking going from 0.7% to maybe 0.72%. That's it. That's all you get from one machine spinning fast enough to break the sound barrier. So what does North Korea do? They connect thousands of these centrifuges in series, creating cascades. It's like a massive relay race where each runner moves the baton forward by an inch. But eventually, inch by inch, you cross the finish line, building 600 houses out of 3,000 centrifuges right now. Centrifuges based on designs Pakistan stole from the Netherlands, acquired despite UN sanctions since 2009 banning any nuclear technology transfers. 3,000 machines spinning faster than sound, producing 25 kilograms of highly enriched uranium per year. That's 5 bombs worth every single year. And satellite images show they're building facilities for 10,000 more. So you've got your weapons-grade material, the stuff that makes physics professors nervous and generals paranoid. But holding plutonium or enriched uranium is like having a loaded gun with no trigger. Now comes the part that keeps weapons designers up at night, turning that material into something that actually goes boom when you want it to. First, technicians convert the uranium or plutonium into metal and machine it into exactly the right shape. This happens inside glove boxes, sealed chambers where workers stick their hands into built-in gloves to handle materials that would otherwise end them. Imagine trying to perform surgery while wearing oven mitts. Around this nuclear core, engineers build an elaborate arrangement of conventional explosives. Not just any explosives. These are shaped into precise geometric patterns called explosive lenses. Think of them as like the opposite of eyeglass lenses. Instead of focusing light, they focus blast waves. These have to compress the nuclear core uniformly from all directions, squashing it from the size of a grapefruit into the size of a tennis ball in millionths of a second. The timing here? Insane. Every single detonator has to fire within 1 microsecond of each other. A microsecond is 1/1,000,000th of a second. Light itself, the fastest thing in the universe, only travels 300 meters in a microsecond. If even one detonator fires late, by the time it takes light to cross 3 football fields, the implosion becomes lopsided. Instead of a nuclear explosion, you get what experts technically call an expensive mess. North Korea had to shrink these devices down to under 200 kilograms while keeping them devastating. The warheads we've seen in military parades are compact spheres, about the size of a beach ball, small enough to fit on missiles, powerful enough to erase cities. But despite all this progress, has North Korea really been getting straight A's in all things that terrify the Pentagon? October 2006, their first test. Less than 1 kiloton yield. That's about 1/20th the power of Hiroshima. The international community basically laughed. Nice try, kids, but leave the nukes to the adults. Except North Korea wasn't done. Not even close. By 2013, they hit 6 kilotons. Still small, but 6 times bigger. Progress. 2016, 20 kilotons. Officially Hiroshima level. Each test was like watching someone go from riding a tricycle to driving a Ferrari. Except the Ferrari is nuclear weapons, and the driver is a totalitarian regime. Then came September 3rd, 2017, the big one. The test that made coffee mugs rattle in Seoul. Seismic stations detected something between 140 and 250 kilotons. For those keeping score at home, that's more than 10 Hiroshimas. 1 bomb. 10 Hiroshimas. This wasn't incremental improvement anymore. This was like going from a firecracker to dynamite the size of a house. But nuclear weapons are useless if you can't deliver them. And that's what really keeps defense officials awake at night. The missiles like this one. The Hwasong-15 can hit anywhere in the continental United States. Anywhere. During its test, it flew 4,475 kilometers high. That's 11 times higher than the International Space Station, before splashing down in the Sea of Japan. The message was crystal clear. We can reach you. All of you. But wait, it gets worse. North Korea developed submarine-launched ballistic missiles. Why does this matter? Because submarines are invisible. You can track a missile silo on satellite. You can watch mobile launchers driving around. But a submarine? That thing could be anywhere in the ocean, ready to surface, ready to launch. This is second strike capability, the ultimate insurance policy. Even if you somehow destroyed every land-based weapon, every silo, every launcher, those submarines could still surface and deliver nuclear retaliation. The current estimate? North Korea has around 60 nuclear weapons. Not theoretical, not in development. 60 actual, functional nuclear weapons. And they did it despite sanctions escalating since 1992. Technology embargoes, component bans, chemical restrictions. Every intelligence agency on Earth tried to stop them. 1/4 of their entire economy went to this program. And the worst part? They're far from being done yet. Bye for now.